Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Easy Mini Painting with me, Christopher Ridge, and we are going to finish up all of the alternate sculpts that come with the Resident Evil 2 board game. We've got Robert Kendo and Ada Wong here, their alternate sculpts, and we're just going to paint them basically the exact same way as we did the core sculpts, so there's not going to be very much that's different. We're going to get through these pretty quick, but why don't we just get on to it? Here we go. Now the very first thing right off the bat is I did a base coat of the skin tone for each of them. For Robert Kendo here, I just used the traditional Barbarian Flesh, and then for Ada, I used the same skin tone that I used for when I did all of the base sculpts, which is Elven Flesh. Now the first big thing is that if you don't want to do that, if you don't want Ada to have the more sort of, bright golden skin tone, and you want her to have the sort of matching skin tone as all of the other characters, that's fine. It's whatever you prefer. I just did this so that it would be a little bit different, get a little bit of variety in there. But if you want the same skin tone for each of them, you can just use Barbarian Flesh. And I think that the first major thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some electric blue, and I'm going to use that for Robert Kendo's pants, just to give him the traditional sort of blue jeans look. Luckily, there's not a lot of detail on his pants, so you can just use whichever brush you want. You don't need to use anything that's super huge, and you don't need to use anything that's really tiny, emphasizing any sort of micro detail. So whatever brush you're comfortable with, you can use a larger one, you can use a smaller one, doesn't matter. And there we go, so now Robert Kendo just has some nice bright blue jeans right there. Next up, I'm going to take out some mummy robes, and we're just going to be using that for Robert Kendo again. We're going to be focusing on his shirt and the sort of bandage that he's wearing on his right arm? Yeah, right arm. I am going to use a slightly smaller brush just because the bandage on the arm is a little bit more precise. It's not hugely detailed. You're not worrying about eyes or anything super sharp or focused or anything like that. So just use a slightly smaller brush, but you don't need to use a, teeny tiny detail brush. And when you're doing his shirt, you can try to avoid going over the suspenders that he's got, because we are going to go over those with a different color later on. But if you don't want to worry about it too much, if you just want to go over the whole shirt because it is probably a little bit quicker, you can do that, because it doesn't really matter if the suspenders are white before you go over them with brown later on, or if they're the regular flesh skin tone that we used as a base coat. It doesn't really matter, but I would just say for the sake of practice, because it's something that is sort of incidental, it doesn't really matter, so you can get some practice in. For the sake of practice, just try going around them a little bit, and that will just kind of help give you a better sense of, working around things in detail and all that kind of stuff. Just practice, that's all. Uh-oh, I got a little bit of paint on his face like that. What I'll do is I'll just take out a fat little brush like that, just get a little bit of water on the tip there, and then just sort of apply it like that. There we go, that'll be fine. Whoops, just a little tiny little mess up right there, but not a big deal at all. Yeah, sometimes if you're quick enough and you catch little things like that, you can just take like a sort of fat brush, wet it down a little bit, and then just sort of scrub really hard against the spot that you just made like that, and everything will be fine. All right, there we go. So now we've just got a nice, solid mummy robes color on Robert Kendo's shirt and on his bandage that's on his right wrist like that. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to rinse that brush off. Next up, why don't we do something with Ada here, because we haven't touched her at all yet. We'll go ahead and knock out her dress. So I'll take out some dragon red, same color that we used for the normal sculpt on her, because she's wearing the same outfit. And we'll just go over the entirety of the dress with dragon red. Now, it may prove to be a little bit tricky to get on the sort of like right side of her chest like that, just because her arm is blocking the way, and so is the stock of the bow gun that she's got there. Just be careful, take your time. You are here to relax, you're here to have fun and unwind. You don't want to stress yourself out or anything like that. So just make sure that apply your brush strokes very carefully. I would use a slightly smaller brush for this one, just because the detail work can be a little bit more precise with this particular aspect. Don't worry about it too much, and if you get like a little bit of paint onto the surrounding skin tone or whatever, I think it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Again, just take your time and be careful, and it'll be a-okay. Alright, so now we just got her dress nice and red there. We just used dragon red for that. Not a big deal very much. Like I said, the trickiest thing is just going to be getting, like, in her chest, surrounding that crossbow and all that. If you get a little bit of paint onto the crossbow, don't worry about it. I would just say try to avoid going over, you know, her arm, that you want to keep that skin color. And, you know, her hair and all of that. That's pretty much the only thing there, so I'm going to rinse that brush off. Next up, we'll do a little bit more with Ada. We're going to take out some dark stone, and we're going to use that on her hair and on the bow gun that she has, because I don't think the bow gun has, like, a distinctly metallic silver look to it. I think it's more of, like, a dark wood kind of thing. But you can use, you know, like, gunmetal later on, because we're going to use gunmetal for Robert Kendo's handgun there anyway. You can do whatever you want, so I'm just going to go over her hair with dark stone, like this, and then we're also going to use that same color on the bow gun. But again, if you want, whenever you're doing gunmetal later on, you can use that instead of this for the bow gun. Alright, so there we go. Now Ada just has some nice sort of like a, you know, dark brown, not, well, off brown. Anyway, very dark hair color, which is kind of the hair color that she has, and that bow gun has that nice dark color as well. And next up, we're going to do a little bit more with Robert Kendo there. We're going to take out some Monster Brown, and we're going to use that for his hair and for his suspenders. Same way that we did for the traditional sculpt. Alright, just a little something like that for his hair. That just brings his hair out a little bit. And then, like I said, we're going to do the same thing with his suspenders. Alright, there we go. So now his suspenders just have that nice brown color, and his hair is nice and covered like that as well. Just make sure you look at his suspenders from all sides, because you can kind of, you know, the sort of like sides here, it can be easy to overlook them. Like so. So you might just touch them up like that. Like I said, just look at, I mean, really, when you're doing any step of any miniature painting, it's something that I remind myself and other people of sometimes, and I forget myself sometimes still. Just whenever you're going through any single step, you know, give your mini a little bit of what I call a once-over, where you just kind of look over the whole thing at all angles, make sure you didn't miss anything, make sure nothing is really standing out, and that will be a-okay, just fine, like that. Oh, you know what's something else that I just realized I forgot as well? I forgot to get Robert's shoes right there. So why don't we just take out some ash gray for that, and that'll just be a quick thing for that. Yeah, just a little tiny thing. You shouldn't take too long to do this because his shoes are pretty straightforward. Just use any brush that's comfortable. You don't need to use a super small one. Just don't use a giant brush because you want to try to avoid getting some of this gray onto his pants if possible. And it doesn't matter if you get it on the base or not, because we're going to go over all the bases with some black later on. Alright, and there you go. That just gets some gray onto his shoes there, and that brings that whole look together. And honestly, we're pretty much done. I mean, we're going to do a couple more things. We're going to go over Robert Kendo's gun with some gunmetal. Like so, simple as that. You just get that gunmetal onto that handgun, and that looks a little bit more striking and a little bit more gun-like. And then next up, we're going to take out some matte black, and then we're going to do some stuff with Ada's actual sculpt, and then we're going to touch up the bases, and then that's pretty much it. We're going to do our Quickshade and our varnish, and then we're done. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll go to Ada here, and we're just going to go over all of her leggings and her shoes, because she's just got, like, you know, all black leggings and black sort of slip-on shoes. The only thing with regard to Ada's shoes and her leggings is that I think a little bit of skin is revealed, like, in between her shoes and her leggings. So if you can, try to leave just a little bit of skin through like that. But if that's proving to be a little bit too cumbersome or a little bit too awkward or frustrating to do, don't worry about it. You can probably just go over the whole thing with black there, and that'll be just fine. But I'm going to try to leave it a little bit just for the sake of showing a little bit of skin there in between her, like kind of on her ankle, so to speak, on her ankles. All right, and then once you've got the leggings and the shoes there completely covered, and then as a lot of the base, I'm going to rinse off the smaller brush that I was using, and then I'm just going to go to a larger, like sort of flat brush, just to make the process of doing the bases a little bit easier. But it honestly doesn't matter. You can just use whichever brush that you want. Here, like I'll use this sort of like flat brush right here. It's not quite a dry brush, but it just has a little bit more surface area, and it will just kind of help to paint flat surfaces like bases a little bit more easily. So I'm just going to use that for the bases. And then we're going to move on. Uh-oh. I just got some paint onto Robert Kendo's pants like that again. Okay, so like I said, what you'll do is you'll just take out like a really fat brush like that, get the tip of it wet just a little bit, just get it into water, and then just sort of do that until it's gone. Maybe wipe off the brush to make sure it's dry. And go over it again. I just got even more on there. I'm so stupid. That's okay. There you go, like that. Like I said, if you're quick enough, if the paint is still wet, and you take a brush like that and you dip it in water, and then you kind of go over the spot that you accidentally just went over, you can catch it and it'll be just fine. All right, so now that's it. That's it for all of the base coat stuff. So now we're going to move on to our Quickshade. All right, and we are going to use strong tone for our Quickshade, the same way that we've done for all of our other miniatures so far. And yeah, you're just going to go over that with an even layer across the entirety of each miniature. I don't know. I bet Robert Kendo is probably a little bit more dry, so why don't we start with him first? But yeah, you'll just go over the entirety of the miniature. It doesn't really matter if you go over the base or not, because the base is black, and this isn't going to do very much to a flat black surface. It doesn't matter. And then you're going to let them completely dry, and then you can either be done with them, or if you want to go over them with a varnish at the end, which I am going to do because I've done it for all the other miniatures, then you can do that too. Just make sure that this Quickshade is completely dry before you do that. And you know what, if you've seen all of the other videos on my channel too, then, or even just one or two other videos on the channel, then you know how this stuff works, and you know how the varnish works and all that. So I won't waste your time, showing that or anything. So let's just apply this this Quickshade, and then we'll let it completely dry, and then we'll apply our varnish, and that'll be it. All right, well, there you go, everybody. That's Robert Kendo and Ada. They're alternate sculpts that come with the Resident Evil 2 board game that you can buy, and I've got them set next to the original sculpts and the original paint jobs that I did, just so you can kind of see a side-by-side comparison there. Yeah, we kind of wanted the same sort of, color pattern for each of them, and I think that it came out just fine, which is good, because that means that the colors that we used and the methods are pretty easily replicable. Replicatable? Pretty sure that's a word. So we're going to go with that. And that wraps up all of the alternate sculpts that come with the Resident Evil 2 board game. So there you go. If you liked the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see more of the channel, what I'm probably going to focus on next is an expansion pack that comes with the board game Mansions of Madness. Whether you have that game or not, whether you care about the creepy Lovecraft monsters and the weird snake monsters that come with it, because the expansion pack is called Path of the Serpent, I hope that it might be something that you would watch and have fun with anyway. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. I think that I'll take a break from Resident Evil for a little while. I am going to focus on that Mansions of Madness expansion, but in any case, we'll see what we do from there. So I won't take up any more of your time, though. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye.